internally first. I look at York, and then I look beyond within our network, which is great because now it's 6 universities. But the important thing is I'm working for you, and I'll look across the country. I want to find the relevant expertise that will match your need. Well, I was fortunate. There was somebody at York, Professor Karen Krasny, and she was willing to sit in on the advisory committee. She's actually presenting right now concurrently, and it's been a great experience for her. And in speaking with Leslie and Jody, it's been a great experience for the OLC as well. Now, I'm confident they may have been able to find somebody on their own. They're extremely well connected. Yet I know that when you're starting to plan a conference of this magnitude, when you've got somebody that can kind of take one of those responsibilities off your plate, it probably makes it a lot easier, and I was happy to do so. We've also supported a whole host of projects, and I'll speak about that in a bit more detail, but I'll provide 3 examples. I'll actually start with the second and the third one. Ann Ramsey is one of the executive directors for Project READ. It is one of the literacy networks here in Ontario, and she approached me around an opportunity for evaluation expertise. They were working on a family literacy program and wanted to bring someone in to do the evaluation. Sorry, I can't remember what I said, but it was an evaluation project. So I go through my process, couldn't find anybody at York, and I'll preface that. I found somebody, but they didn't have the capacity. So I looked within our network, which at the time was just the University of Victoria, and I didn't find anybody. What I do then is start to work locally. Local relationships generally tend to work best. I mean, it's certainly a lot easier. And there was somebody at the University of Waterloo who had direct, relevant expertise, and they've been working together for quite a while, actually. So I was really happy about making that kind of match. With the Literacy Network of Durham Region, again, it was a small-scale project that they wanted to do some evaluation work on, and there was somebody within York that I was able to match them up with. It was a fairly small-scale project, and what made it really enticing was that the network in Durham, they had some resources to support this. It always helps, but it's not necessary. And I hope I explain that later. If not, please ask, because it's a really important point that people coming to the table with projects, they don't need to have money. It's not necessary. Sometimes it's helpful, but it is not necessary. Yet they did, and it was able to, and that money was utilized around the use of a graduate student that did a little bit more of the grunt work around the data collection and the data analysis, and that worked out quite well. Yet a third project, and this is with another network, this is in Peel, Halton, Dufferin, just west of Toronto here. They wanted to pursue a project around literacy and health. And I was able to find a match at York. So they met, they came up with a research question, and it hasn't moved forward because they haven't been able to find the resources. So that's the preface. I mean, it's not an exact science. It's not a lack of effort. I'll make a match. I will find a corresponding match to a need probably 90 to 95% of the time. And they move forward toward a project about 70 to 75% of the time. And honestly, the reasons why they don't can range from priority changes within an organization. The thing you wanted 3 months ago may not be what you're looking for today. The issue of capacity. I've had a whole host of faculty colleagues or graduate students say, I would love to work on that, but they simply just don't have the time. And that's certainly a possibility. A third initiative that we have worked on very closely is around clear language writing and design training. And I'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but this is again with the executive director of the Peel, Halton, Dufferin network. They have some expertise and capacity around this. They have come in probably about 9 or 10 times and provided workshops for staff and graduate students, sometimes faculty, around clear language writing and design principles. Why I think this is so cool is that of all the graduate students that are at York, and this is probably the same at other universities, about half of them are going to pursue non-academic careers. Yet, they're in a factory that is training them to be academics, which makes perfect sense. I mean, it just kind of, it is what it is. Yet, you have 1 out of every 2 that aren't going to go down that academic road. So for them to acquire these kind of skill sets and be aware of the principles and have an opportunity to apply them has often been seen as extremely rewarding and, more importantly, extremely useful. That's a bit of a teaser because I have an example later to show you. A couple more things with the Ontario Literacy Coalition. The relationship has really strengthened between our unit and the OLC over the last probably 6 months or so. This is one where the idea actually came from our unit. Being 5 years old, we're like a 5-year-old. We go around, we talk a lot, we think we know a lot of things, but Now, we want to be able to demonstrate that there's a certain level of proficiency that we're able to do certain things. And we want to work with the OLC around a scholarly paper that will dive into some of, I don't have a pointer, that will dive into perhaps some of these as case studies and explore other work as well. Focusing around a knowledge broker model, but for the OLC, focusing on process and outcome. What has it meant for literacy networks and agencies to be able to work with the knowledge mobilization unit? And it will actually be really helpful because it will get down to that fork in the road. Has it had an impact around their professional practice, or has the information helped them to inform policy making? We are also working around exploring internship opportunities. And that's another example, which is actually probably coming up. But the notion of interns has been hugely successful for us, somewhat unexpectedly, but it has really provided a lot of solid results. I've talked about this a little bit. I'll focus a little bit more time and energy around it. For any questions right now or any points of clarification? All right. The idea of being a service unit within a university is I don't say it's unique, but it's certainly rewarding. I mean, the default mechanism in our office is yes. How can we help? How can we make it happen? Yet it's predicated around values, respect and honesty, that if we can't make it work, we'll let you know. We'll let you know up front. We work very, very hard to manage expectations. Because I know if I was you and I was listening to me, and I go back to my practice in Hamilton, I would have had a myriad of options and opportunities. So when I have the conversation and explore options, it becomes very important to manage expectations. I mentioned we find a match about 90% of the time, and it moves into a project 70 or 75% of the time. It works a lot, but it doesn't always work. We really focus around engagement, just not participation. Our non-academic collaborators are seen as equal partners in this process. And the amount of time that I spend outside of the university, well, it's not 50%, but it's fairly close. And we really are pushing and seeking to explore the notion of impact, which gets bandied about a lot. It's somewhat of an elusive term. So with the exception of email and phone calls, I track everything. Don't quite know what it all means yet, but I track it all. And that probably sounds familiar working in literacy, where there's a lot of administrative requirements and reporting. Yet for us, it's important to show that early on, Is there enough activity to sustain this? Is this providing some value? So as a service unit, there are 3 pillars that support what we do, and now we're going to start to focus on some of those activities outside of that theory box. The first thing we do is try and create space. We really want to bring people together. Simple and straightforward. Bring them together around common interests and allow them to meet and interact. The second thing we do is supporting building capacity. Again, with 50% of graduate students pursuing non-academic careers, giving them the opportunity to link up with prospective employers, but certainly collaborators to enrich their research has been fantastic. We're actually starting to expand that notion of capacity as well. We're starting to develop something called a toolkit, or a toolbox that will focus not only internally around the how-to, like how to do knowledge mobilization, but we're also starting to work externally as well to provide people the skill sets to engage in this process and kind of do some of their own things, such as program evaluation and along the lines of like a research 101. And the sort of the core business is around partnership opportunities and our project description form, which I'll discuss. I've talked about this briefly, but I'll discuss number 3. The big success, which has been a springboard from the Clear Language Writing and Design workshop, is the notion of research snapshots. We haven't invented anything here. The notion of a clear language summary of research, if you did a search, you'd probably trip over them. There are a lot of them. Yet we wanted to develop one that really sort of made sense for our broad audience, something that would work internally, something that would work externally, but also something that had the opportunity to roll out within a national network. So you see they'll be branded along the lines of our website, Research Impact, and they focus around a few common questions. We have a library of about 120 of these right now, which is searchable, and there's the link there. On a whole host of topics. We develop about 30 or 40 of them a summer. And again, we train students to do this work. So they'll solicit research from predominantly academic research, in some cases community-based research, and take the report and distill it down into 2 pages. The researcher has the ultimate IP, like the intellectual property, the ownership over this. They'll make some changes. It goes back and forth a bit. Once they've signed off on it, we format it and provide a copy for them and post it on the website. And how we get this out is we use a social media strategy. I mean, we tweet, and we've got our research snapshot of the day. And it's been a really effective way to kind of push this out. And we also utilize a monthly blog, which we have about 1,500 followers from across the country. The great thing for the researcher, it's a calling card. I mean, if you want to discuss new research, if you're excited about something you've done, good Lord, don't give them the full report, and maybe don't even give them the abstract. The language is approachable, the format is approachable, and it's a good way to sort of introduce to an audience, here's something that I've done. But I think more importantly, for the end user, and I go back to when I was working, there were documents that would come across my desk that I wouldn't read because I simply didn't have time, and I knew they were relevant. I knew it. And I'm like, it's 80 pages. I can't do it. If every one of those reports had a 2-page lay summary, I'd skim through it and figure out what I was going to read on the weekend. Because I would know by having read that it's relevant. A big goal for me as our network is expanding is to be able to generate these across the country. Again, there shouldn't be a geographic constraint for people to access relevant information. this is our flagship program, and I think it's pretty darn cool. It's called K